Hey, everybody, and welcome back in to the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam Hind, and today I'm going to be ripping off a big old Band-Aid. I'm going to be putting myself out there on the line and talking about some pretty raw stuff. This week I think it's on Friday, we're having RUOK Day, and I thought this was a really good time to talk about some of the things that I've learned about myself during this whole crazy year that is 2020. And a few things that I think a lot of people out there might be experiencing that, I've done a little bit of reflection and pondering, and I've gone, what have I learned? What has been going on in my world? What are some of the things that I've learned about myself in this time? If I really, really knuckle down and think about it. And there are a few things that my kids, in fact, have been saying to me just over the last week that have really shone a great big spotlight on some areas of my life that I think I probably needed to be shown. And I just wonder if, this segment today was on my heart. I thought this might speak to one or two people out there today. I really hope that it does. But before we really get into it, what I do want to say is I just want to put a ton of love out there to everybody who is going through their own challenges, their own stresses, their own little journeys. I know that everybody is going through a completely different journey right now. And for everyone, it's very new. For so many of us, we really are having to unpack some pretty crazy stuff in our worlds. And I don't know about some of you guys, but for me, one of the greatest challenges has been this feeling of I don't have a right to be stressed or to struggle. I haven't gone through the financial hardship that I know so many have gone through. I own a business and I still have my business. I feel very blessed to still have my business when so many don't. And so I'm sitting here going, I might struggle, but I have to struggle in silence because there are so many people worse off than me. And one thing I've discovered is that's one of the worst things that we can do. So I'm going to put myself out there today. I'm going to talk to you about 5 things that I've learned about myself that I think some of you guys might go, yep, totally get that. That's me too. And all I can say is I just hope that this speaks to one or two people out there today. So let's get on into it. So guys, I want to start with number 1. This is the number 1 thing that I've been saying for a very long time, but it's become even more apparent over this period. Now, anyone who's a mum, I'm kind of hoping that you guys are going to get this one. And all I titled it was Supermom, oh, please. I've always said being a supermom is a dirty word. Calling someone a supermom is a dirty word. And I've always said that because I've had a lot of people over the years say, how do you work and have, 4 kids, one of which when I first started this business was, how old was Levi? About 3, I think he was. I was in a relatively new relationship when I started the business and all of this stuff was going on. And I had so many people come to me and say, you are a supermom. How do you do it? Just tell me how you do it. And all I could think to myself was, I don't do it. I survive. And so I just want to say that over this season, I know so many people did what I did, which is that you went into this time of homeschooling and you kind of went, I can do this. I am going to be awesome. I'm going to run a business or I'm going to do my job, whatever that was for you. I'm going to homeschool my kids. I'm going to prove that I can do it as well as the teachers do it. I'm going to be able to teach my kids. They're going to come out of this. This is how my head went. They're going to come out of this season smarter and more ahead and caught up on all the things they were behind on. I'm going to do an awesome job and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. I'm going to make myself and my kids and my family and everyone so super proud of how well I'm coping in this season. I thought, we're going to have lunches together. We're going to play at recess. I'm going to be like the crafty person, which, by the way, I am not a crafty person. Let me just put that out there right now. And we got through day 1 and I got to the end of day 1. And I was like, okay, let's just call that practice day, right? Is anyone sort of going, yep, get this? Some of you, by the way, were awesome at this. So I know this won't speak to everybody. But for me, what happened was we got to about day 3. And I sat there with my head in my hands because I'd barely done any work. And any time that I did, the kids were quite literally slipping notes under the door of my office. And the more time went on, the more dramatic these notes got, until it got to a point where I can't even repeat what some of them said, because the kids knew that there were certain things that if they did, I wouldn't be able to ignore them. And so, yeah, these notes got quite creative, and they thought that's got to get her attention for sure. So we had all sorts of crazy things going down in our house. And we got to a point where, because we have 4 kids, and so 2 of the older ones were, trying to use all of the online systems. And we discovered after about 2 or 3 days that they were also having a lot of fun chatting with their friends behind the scenes. We didn't realize how much chatting was going on and how little work was actually happening, which showed us that we needed to be even more present than we thought. And the 2 little kids, they were also needing to do online learning, but a lot of the instructions, they were having a bit of trouble reading. My 2 boys struggle a little bit with their reading. And so we had to be sitting down next to them the entire time to walk them through what the next thing was. And so I got to about day 3, and Greg took one look at me. He said, well, look, we're going to call a family meeting. And Greg and the kids all just said, Sam, get out. That's how well I was doing. They said, Sam, go back to work. We want you to go back to work. I'm going to take over the homeschooling. This is what Greg said. And you know what? I had to just accept that that was how it was going to be. I was really felt really guilty that I felt this great big weight come off my shoulders when he said that, because I realized I am not patient enough to teach my kids and run a business and do all the crafty, creative stuff that, again, craft and creative, not my forte. And on top of that, I think probably the straw on the camel's back was the day that Aiden came to me and he said, Mum, can you help me with a little bit of my addition and subtraction? And I thought, yeah, sure, no worries, I can do that. And I knew how to work out multiplication and addition and all of those things on a piece of paper. This will make some of you guys laugh right now, because I know I'm not alone in this. And he said, okay, what about subtraction? He said, tell me, what is this number minus this number? And I thought, oh my goodness, I know what the answer is because I've worked it out in my head. I actually can't remember how to work that out on paper, and I can't tell him the answer. I actually have to show him how to figure it out. That was the point where I just thought, you know what? Teachers, you guys are amazing. I love you and I want you back in my life. So homeschooling definitely was not for me. And I also discovered at that point that I needed to take that pressure off myself. We've all got incredible skills in different places. Every single one of us has got amazing skills we were born with. And I've just had to accept that one of mine is not being patient, homeschooling, and running a business at the same time. I actually can't do it all. And that was a really good reminder to me that, you know what, I can't do it all. And instead of beating myself up about it, I need to just understand that my skills are better served in a different place. And when Greg took over and I let that happen and I kind of got over the frustration and the guilt and the upset I felt around that, the house never worked smoother. He was amazing. He was so patient with them. They were having lunch together every day. They'd call me up for lunch, and it just worked so much better. So number one thing I've learned about myself is I am not a super mum. I can't do everything. And the sooner that I accept that in all things I do, the smoother and better things are going to run. So that was number one. So that might speak to a couple of people out there. I've seen some pretty funny pictures and posts and videos going up from mums all over the world saying that this has been a big challenge for them. Number two, the second thing that I've learned about myself is that sometimes just getting through the day is in fact an achievement to be proud of. Now, I know I've got women and men that listen to this podcast, but I want to speak to those of you right now that are parents that run a business or work full-time. Now, you guys put a huge amount of stress and pressure on yourself to achieve big things every day. I know because I know you guys, and I know that you get through the day and you think that it's nothing to be proud of if you haven't achieved something big. So you know those days when you kind of sit down and you feel like you've been busy all day, but you get to the end of the day and you go, I have been flat out, and yet I feel like I've achieved absolutely nothing. When in actual fact, I had to accept over this period as well that sometimes just getting through the day is an achievement. And you know what? If the day doesn't start the way I wanted it to start, or I didn't achieve all of the goals I set out for myself at the beginning of the day or the beginning of the week, it's still okay. I was speaking to a really good friend of mine the other day about this, and I just said, sometimes it just feels really frustrating and challenging that you feel like you're wasting your days because time is so precious, especially at the moment. And, I'm getting really cross with myself because I'm not getting all the things done I want to get. And she said, all right, first of all, perfection and striving for perfection is pure stupidity. And she was so right. Second of all, she said, try breathing. Just stop and breathe, because sometimes when you feel so overwhelmed with everything that's going on, and I felt this probably more in the last 3 or 4 months than I have any time in my life, is that feeling of complete overwhelm because every day it feels like a new day at the moment, is breathe. Just breathe. Sometimes I even find if breathing isn't working, I don't know about you guys, I've got a smartwatch that I got just, it must have been around about February, March this year, which I bought for running. And the watch, it picks up when your blood pressure drops a little, it picks up when you're not breathing, doing deep belly breaths. So it picks up when there's not enough, I guess, oxygen in your blood. I'm not quite sure how it does it. It's constantly telling me to breathe. It also tells me to stand up a lot. It's very bossy. But the point is that sometimes we forget to do the simple things like breathing, getting up and moving. So I find just get up and go for a little walk around the block, or if you can't go that far, which, sometimes you can't because you don't have time, just get out, walk to the front door and back. And something else that, in fact, I think it was Beverly Unit said on one of our podcasts a few weeks ago was just complete something. Just think about what is the next most logical, simple thing you can complete. Go and get something done. It doesn't have to be at work. It could be to go and clean out your linen press. It could be to clean out one of your drawers or your cupboards. And I know that a few of you guys heard that podcast. You did it. And I had a bunch of people write to me and say, oh my goodness, that really helped. It really helped me feel like I'd achieved something and sort of took me out of that sense of overwhelm and into a place of I've done something. So that's number 2. The second thing that I've really discovered about myself is that striving for perfection is absolutely stupid. And sometimes I should just be proud of myself that I got through the day and stop and take time to breathe. Okay. So number 3. Now, this one was a bit of a hard one to come to terms with, but I've got some really incredible coaches in my world, some amazing people that I pay to call me out on stuff. And I do that because sometimes I really need the hard word, but it can't come from Greg. It can't come from someone that's really close to me that I love. It has to come from someone who I really respect as an authority outside of the people that I need to nurture. So I was having a conversation with one of these coaches a few days ago, and I said, look, I'm not getting any of my values met at the moment, and I'm just feeling and yuck. And he went, hang on a minute. He said, can you just stop for a little sec and be a little bit more grateful for what is going on in your world? And I realized he was so right. I can be at times so incredibly ungrateful. And he said, just stop for a little sec. You're thinking of all the things that you haven't got over this period. You're focusing now on all the stuff that's not the same, that's not the way that you thought it was going to be. He said, what's one of the things that you're a little bit upset that you're not getting right now? And I said, well, travel is super important to me. I said it's super important to so many people out there, and no one is getting it. And it's really causing people to feel yuck. They appreciate being able to go out and explore and see new things and speak to new people, or even just visit family and friends. And he said, hold on just a second. What do you do every day in your work? And I said, well, I do webinars. I'm online every day. And he said, okay, where are the people that you're online to? I said, well, all over the globe. And he said, give me some countries. I said, all right, well, last week we spoke to Ireland, we spoke to Malaysia, we spoke to New Zealand, we spoke to the UK, we spoke to some places in Europe, Germany, etc. And he said, okay, so you're effectively traveling more now than you ever have ever in your business at any time in your life. And I said, wow, you're really right. And he goes, okay, well, you can kid yourself into thinking, well, but I'm not getting on a plane and I'm not actually putting my feet on the soil. But why not look at the blessing in what's going on right now. We can live through the people, first of all, that we're connecting with and we're having conversations with, but we're also making connections with people that we never, ever would have got to make connections with before. And I know this goes for lots of you right now as well, because many of you have been connecting with people within your companies also in other regions, in other countries. And because you've been doing so much stuff online, those connections are going to be really, really powerful for you. And I know that it's really easy for us to not look at, because we're so busy focusing on, well, I'm not getting on a plane and I'm not going to travel. But he was so right. I haven't realized just how much traveling I'm doing right now that I wouldn't otherwise get to do. And somebody else said to me, the other thing you've got to remember is that if you were in fact traveling to those places, you would be connecting with far fewer people, because you might travel to Malaysia to go and speak or do whatever it is that you're going to do there. That's going to take you a week, maybe even 2 weeks to get there, do what you got to do, come back. And then, in that time right now in the season that we're in, you're doing 2 webinars a day. You're doing Malaysia in the morning and Ireland at night. And I thought, you know what? You're so right. And that made me stop for a little moment and think, what else have I gained over this period that I have not been thinking about? And I realized there are a couple of things that I've been wanting for years. I've been wishing for years that this season has forced into being. One of those that I'm so incredibly grateful for is the fact that we sit down with our kids every night and we have family dinner with our kids every single night now. Now, we didn't do that. We barely did that one night a week previously, because Greg and I were always so busy doing the, race to get the kids from school, get homework done. We're still tying up work while we're running around doing baths, dinner, all of that stuff. And then Greg and I would get them to bed, and then we would eat our dinner later together. And I always kind of missed and felt a little bit envious of those people that sat down and had family dinners and unpacked the day with their kids. You know how sometimes when you're sort of in a bit of a routine, just a habit, it's the way you do things, you don't know how to break that? Well, coronavirus broke that for us, because we actually reformed our habits to be that now we have a dinner together every night. And it's the most incredible blessing for us, because we're actually getting to talk through the day with our kids instead of them being brushed off or us brushing off our day. And the other thing we're discovering is that Greg and I are also able to unpack some of the challenges that we're going through with the kids, so that they can see how we as adults solve things too, which again has been something that we never thought we would have the opportunity to do. So that's been a really, really big one for us also. From a business perspective, we also have had more time in our accelerator membership. For those of you that are in there, you know how much we love being in there. For me, it is the most fun within my business, being able to do that group, to do the training every week. And because we've been so focused on that group over the last few months, it's over doubled in size. And it's just been, every time I get in there and I do something, I feel my heart lift. This podcast happened because we had more time. So I guess where I'm going at with this, we've all got different things we can be thankful for and we can be grateful for. But I noticed that at the very beginning of the year, I was focused on all the positives. But without even realizing it, over the last few months, my focus has gone from being focused on the positives to just focusing on the things that I don't have, that are different, that are never going to be the same, that I'm sad about, that are wrong, that are not right. And I just realized what an ungrateful so-and-so I've become over this season. And I commit to myself to start focusing a little bit more on some of those incredible things that are happening in my world. And this friend of mine said, nothing is ever missing. So where you think that you don't have something, have a look at where else it's appeared. And just because travel, for example, hasn't happened in the way I expected it to happen, doesn't mean it's not still a blessing and something to be grateful for. So I'm very thankful for those incredible people in my world that call me out on some stuff. I sure hope that you guys have got someone like that. I definitely feel it can't be your husband or your wife or, your loving partner or a companion, because we tend to get really resentful and frustrated with them when they call us to arms and tell us, hey, you know what, pull your head in. But I've got some amazing people in my world that I call upon to do that for me. Some I pay, others I don't, but, I think it's really important that we have that. So I'm going to commit to being just a little bit more grateful now going forward. And I want to call you guys out and say, hey, you know what? Let's pick each other up on it. I'd love for someone to pull me up every now and again and go, hey, Sam, stop complaining. I think it's important. All right. Number 4, the fourth thing that I've discovered about myself, and I think this is just a general observation that I've made, is that alone time is underrated. We are so confined right now in whatever zone we're in, where Zoom has become this. It's taken over our worlds, which means that we're also working a lot faster. So previously you would have to go to a location, to go to a meeting, sit in there with people. It might be that you were traveling, or it might have been in the office, and you would sit with people, then the meeting would be over and you'd go away back to your office. But what's happening now is Zoom is in your office. You just turn it on and you're speaking to people. Now, I find that some of my days I can quite literally be back-to-back Zooming for 8 hours. On top of that, for those of you that don't have that going on, you might also just be jammed in with people that you would normally get a bit of space from. So as much as I love my amazing husband, Greg, I also realized in sort of unpacking this one for me, that when I was doing all of that travel previously, and we were traveling a lot, so we might have been away once every 1 to 2 weeks traveling somewhere, sometimes together, sometimes separately. But what I realized in that is that traveling in itself was a bit of alone time. So I would get on a plane and I would be able to do whatever I wanted. I could read a book. I could listen to a podcast. I could listen to some music. I could catch up on a bit of work, but no one could bother me. I didn't have anyone I knew sitting next to me. If I chose to talk to them, I could. If I chose not to, I didn't have to. And so I was experiencing a little bit of essentially alone time, just time where I could unpack things. Sometimes I would even journal. It would just be an opportunity for me to kind of decompress and just sit with myself. Now, a lot of us were experiencing that in different ways. It might have been that you could experience that alone in your office. It could be that you might be traveling by yourself. It could be that you were doing things alone in lots of different ways, but it's really funny. We've kind of been isolated, and yet in isolation, we've lost a lot of that alone time. And so what I've discovered is that quality alone time has kind of gone by the wayside. I myself have committed to spending some time actually going off somewhere and doing something by myself. Again, having amazingly wise friends has been a real blessing over this time. I had somebody that I had a coffee with last week, and she said to me, Sam, what do you actually enjoy doing when you're by yourself? In fact, one of you guys, when we did the 21 questions, Greg and I did the 21 questions on the 21st episode of this podcast, and someone said, Sam, when you're alone by yourself, if you had an hour where no one could disturb you, you could do whatever you want, what would you do? And I actually felt really put on the spot, because I thought, you know what? I don't know. I actually am so busy being busy. I don't know what I would do if I was by myself. And that was the point where I sort of thought, you know what? I actually need to get back to being alone. I need to get back to having that time to myself to do something that I really want to do. So I'm going to commit, and I'd love for some of you guys to commit to that too. If you recognize that maybe that's something for you, that you haven't had alone time, you haven't been given that space, more to the point, you haven't taken that space to just love yourself and be by yourself. It might be just to go and have a bath. It might be to go for a walk. Or for me, it's actually going and spending a night away somewhere where, I can listen to a podcast. I can do a bit of journaling, maybe just sit there and listen to some music or a movie by myself, but be undisturbed and just be in my own presence for a period of time. And I really think that that is so super underrated, and yet so important to us being ourselves, being what we need to be. All right, so number 5, you ready? This one, again, a little bit of a hard one to understand. Well, not to understand, to come to terms with. But again, this came from one of my kids. This whole episode really came from my kids, because they've been saying some really amazing things over this period where I've gone, you know what? You guys are really on the money with this stuff right now. Your kids can say to you some very wise things and you don't really think about it. In fact, I woke up yesterday morning, and I've got a bit of an issue with my neck from an old sporting injury, where most of the time it's okay now. I've got on top of it, but every now and again I'll wake up in the morning and it will be completely stuck. And yesterday morning I woke up and I was in excruciating pain and it was completely stuck. And I sort of woke up at fairly early hours of the morning, and I was unable to move. And Greg straight away got up. What do you need? How can I help? He tried to help me move. He got me a heat pack, rubbed cream into my back. And then he went and said, right, he had a look at my day. He said, I'm clearing your day out. I'm going to spend some time with you. I'm going to take you up to see the doctor that you need to see. We're just going to get this fixed. And I'm sitting there, I'm in pain. When you're in pain and you're just mad, everything just makes you mad. And I was just thinking of all the things that were making me mad. And the kids got up and, they're giving me very gentle hugs and loving me. And even now I'm feeling quite emotional about this because I realized just what an ass I can be at times. And Greg, they could see Greg fussing over me. And my youngest, my 7-year-old, looks at me and he goes, Mum, you really have got such an amazing husband. And he goes, in actual fact, you're even more lucky than that because your amazing husband brought you 2 amazing kids along with him. And I was like, I just need to stop sometimes and think and be grateful for these amazing blessings that we have. And so that was a bit of a raw moment where I just went, you know what? He's so right. He's so right. I do have an amazing husband. And instead of being focused on all of the things that annoy me, I could start focusing on some of the things that I really appreciate that are a blessing and that I'm grateful for. So number 5, the last one of these came from the kids, and this was that I am what I say I am. I actually recognized my kids speaking some things into being in themselves, and I wanted to pull them up because I know that as a kid, I recognize now as a grown-up, I don't know about you guys, but do some of you guys do this where you spoke some certain things into being where, I told myself I'm a bad sport. I can't run. I'm not coordinated. I can't catch a ball. I'm not good with numbers. I'm not a great learner because I'm not ahead of my class. These are all things that I said to myself as a young kid, and I recognized that all the way through believed these things, so much so that they became very real. They were who I was. And then what I've learned in adulthood is that in actual fact, I'm none of those things. As I started to get out and experiment and try, I realized, you know what? I can start speaking certain things into being within myself. I am great at sport. I can run. I've just never tried because I thought I couldn't because someone told me one day that I couldn't, and I kept telling myself that. I can catch a ball. You know what? I can do numbers. I can be good at business. Do you know, I told myself when I started my business, don't be ridiculous. I could never, ever run a business. I don't have a clue. I'm not qualified for that. Do you know what? That's a load of rubbish. And if any of you guys are telling yourselves that, you need to give yourself a big slap on the wrist right now because you're speaking that into being. And I recognize now that my kids are doing the same things. They're hearing people telling them, you're not good at reading, you're not good at writing, you're behind in your class, and they're starting to believe it, so much so that they're not even trying anymore. And that's where we as adults can show them that, you know what? I can speak things into being into my world. And I feel I have a responsibility to do that for them now. So I've actually begun being a little bit more open with them. And things, for example, like the running. I truly believed I could never run. I thought, you know what? I'm not like the rest of my family. I'm not a runner. I'm never going to be able to run. So I never tried. It's only in recent years that I've proven myself completely inaccurate in that space. And I've actually been sharing that journey with my kids. Do you know, as a kid, I told myself I couldn't do this. And so I never actually tried because I thought I was bad at it. And the kids are going, but you're so good at running now. It's like, yeah, but I always was good at running. I just told myself I wasn't. And so having those open conversations with them has I can see their beautiful little brains ticking over going, hang on a minute, maybe that goes for my reading, or maybe that goes for my writing. Maybe I should have another go. So that's another thing that I've learned is that I am what I say I am. And just because I've spoken something into being as a kid does not mean that that's who I am now. And I've got to be really careful about the words that I say to myself, particularly now. But also being a parent, I have a responsibility to choose my words to myself as carefully as I might choose them to other people, because we can be absolute assholes to ourselves. Really, we can, and we don't stop and think about that. And I know that's not language I'd normally use, but I'm saying it because I really mean it. We are nasty, and I need to be a little bit nicer to Sam. So I'm just going to go back and recap on those 5 things. I have been a little bit raw today. I did rip a big Band-Aid off. I really wanted to do this week because of Are You Okay Week. I know it's a day, but I'm going to call it a week. I'm going to call it a month. I'm going to call it a year because I really want to just ask you the question right now, are you okay? And do you know what? If you're not, reach out. Reach out to someone that you can talk to. There are so many incredible services out there right now. But you know what? If it's not one of those services, reach out to a friend. Just reach out. Even, if you're in our membership, guys, reach out in our community. I really want everyone to be speaking about what is going on for them. Whether you feel that you've got a right to say it or not, you've got a right to say it. You've got a right to feel what you're feeling. And sometimes just stopping and reflecting, like I've had the opportunity to do over the last few weeks, has been a real eye-opener to, you know what? Actually, I'm just going to put my attitude into check for a little moment because I feel right now like one of the most blessed people on this planet. And yet I know I'm not alone, but I also know that I need to stop being quite so hard on myself. So number 1 was Supermom's a dirty word. And I was never made for homeschooling. Number 2 is that sometimes just getting through the day is an achievement to be proud of. Number 3 is that I can be really ungrateful and I'm going to make a commitment to focusing a little bit more on the things that I am grateful for in my world. I'm going to have a bit more gratitude. Number 4 is alone time is underrated and I'm going to spend a little bit more time with Sam, alone, doing what Sam likes and giving Sam some space. And number 5 is I am what I say I am and I actually have the ability to talk stuff into being, both good and bad. So they're my 5 observations I've made about myself over the last 3 to 6 months. And I just, this might speak to 1 or 2 people out there today. Some of you guys might go, you know what? I feel that. I get it. That's me. But if not, you know what? We'll be back to talk about social media next week. So never fear. Main thing is, guys, I just want to say my heart goes out to all of you and loving you guys so much right now. Thanks so much for listening to our podcast. That's my gratitude for today, is that you take the time out to listen to me blabbering on for half an hour to 45 minutes every week. But I do just want to say, guys, you're amazing and just take the time to love yourself a little over this period of time and stay safe, guys. We'll see you again next week. Bye for now.